Let's take a look at campaign ads, and we're going to look at TV campaign advertisements, which are huge in elections, especially presidential elections, but they're really big in all types of major elections, governors, senators, representatives, and so on. In 2012, if we want to look at campaign spending just on advertisements, now this is according to the Washington Post, President Obama spent $404 million on campaign ads. 85% of that was for negative ads. Mitt Romney, $492 million, and 91% of that was negative advertisement. So when it looks at campaign commercials, we spend a lot of money on campaign advertisement, or candidates do. So let's look at the type of campaign spending that's out there. First of all, this is according to that same one. In 2012, you may say, well, I don't remember seeing that many campaign advertisements. There was only 2 ads run in South Dakota, and it cost $1,800 to run those 2 ads. So, well, that's not that much. Is it because we're a small state? Well, Houston, Texas, only had 3 ads there with a total of $450. However, Tampa, Florida had 43,000 campaign ads run for president. So this is President Obama and Mitt Romney, and that cost $48 million. And Denver, Colorado, 55,000 ads with the cost of $55 million. The difference is South Dakota and Texas weren't swing states. We knew going in that South Dakota was going to go for Romney, that Texas was going to go for Romney. But Florida and Colorado and some of these other states, we really didn't know, where that money was going to be spent, or who was going to win that particular state. And if you look at this again, this is that same one we just looked at. This shows the spending on campaign ads. And notice the Floridas, the Colorados, the Iowas, the Minnesotas, some of the states that we consider swing states, Ohio, that's where they're running their advertisement. Around Columbus, Ohio, $30 million spent on 39,000 ads. I showed you the Tampa, Florida, around Orlando, another $45 million. And if you look up here, there was a total of $173 million spent in Florida, $151 million in Virginia. Notice these few states here, but these states are the ones that we consider the swing states, the ones that it's harder to predict in the last election who would win that state. The rest of the states had a pretty good idea who was going to win. So you don't spend money equally in all states. Some states you're pretty sure you're going to win. No use spending a lot of money in that state. There's other states that a candidate may feel pretty confident that they're probably going to lose. No point in spending a lot of money in those states. Okay, so we looked at this. The other thing I want you to think about is that campaign commercials are garbage. If your goal is to be an informed voter, you probably shouldn't be paying attention to campaign commercials because there's a number of tried and true strategies that they use. And these strategies include things that are called glittering generalities. Now, a glittering generality are just words and phrases that sound appealing, but really everyone would agree with them. So if I make a campaign commercial and I say things like, I support a strong economy, so does my opponent. It doesn't separate me. It's things that really everybody agree with. Now, they may be appealing to us because we may be listening to a commercial and say, yeah, I support some of those same things that you say. Apparently, I'm pretty close to this candidate. But if we really think about it, we realize that, pretty much everybody does. John Thune uses the phrase South Dakota values. Well, who in South Dakota is not going to support the values of South Dakota? So it's not really a term that separates him from anybody else. I'm going to show you a commercial here. Now, the problem with these commercials is they don't come across very clear, but we can get some idea. And here's a Mitt Romney commercial. This is actually, I think, from 2008. But
the right course for America in a world where evil still exists is not acquiescence and weakness. It's assertiveness and strength. We believe in a strong military. We believe in a strong economy. We believe in strong families and values. There is not one
Okay, all of those things, those are examples of glittering generalities. We believe in a strong economy. We believe in a strong family and a strong values, and whatever he all said. Well, everybody does. His opponent is not running on the anti-family platform or the anti-economy platform or the anti-military platform. Everybody agrees with these statements that Mitt Romney just said. This is just an example of glittering generalities. Statements made that really may sound appealing, but everyone agrees with them. So they don't really give us any useful information. They're not really harmful, though. Some commercials can be harmful. Card stacking commercials are a good example of that. I'm going to show you one example, but there are lots. And basically, they're using limited facts to support the position. They're really telling partial truths. Like I could give the example, I could say, well, I finished in the top 10 of my graduating class, which is a true statement. And you may think, well, hey, that makes Rhodey pretty smart. And that's what I want you to believe. The truth of the matter is there was 20 people in my graduating class in Bristol, South Dakota. And even though I finished in the top 10, which is a true statement, it's kind of deceiving. It's only a partial truth. I'm going to show you a commercial from a while back, and it's going to be grainy, but it's called Bad Call, and then I'll give you the information on it. And you got to realize that these are used constantly, that they're just a partial bit of truth within an ad, and they're very deceiving commercials. Let's watch this one.
Hi, sexy. You reached the live one-on-one fantasy line.
The phone number to an adult fantasy hotline appeared on Michael Arcuri's New York City hotel room bill while he was there on official business. And the call was charged to Oneida County taxpayers. Arcuri has denied it, but the facts are there. Who calls a fantasy hotline and then bills taxpayers? Michael Arcuri.
Bad call.
The National Republican Congressional Committee paid for and is responsible for the content of this message.
Okay, now everything in that commercial was true, but it was all very deceiving. And I'll give you the facts on this. But who would vote for this guy? Who's going to vote for somebody who, while on official business, calls a fantasy sex hotline and then charges it to taxpayers? And now he's running for Congress, and we're saying, well, is this the kind of person we would like? Well, let's look at the facts here. Phone records show that he did make a call, or at least a call was made from his hotel room at 3:26 p.m. on January 28th of 2004, and it was made to the Fantasy Talk service. The very next minute, he made a second call to the exact same number except for the area code. So like if he was calling the school, it'd be 605-582-3211. But let's say he dialed 606-582-3211. He wouldn't get the Brandon Valley School District because the first three numbers were incorrect. So on the line, less than a minute. The phone company's charged by the minute. So the very next minute, he made a second call to the exact same line, exact same number, just a different area code. Who was the second call made to? The New York State Department of Criminal Justice. Arcuri was attending a meeting on the New York State District Attorneys Association. Doesn't it seem like he probably made a missed dial? That he incorrectly dialed, got the Fantasy Talk service, hung up in less than a minute, and then made a second call to, well, in this case, the New York State Department of Criminal Justice, which seems like someone who's on official business as a district attorney might be making that call. Still doesn't change the fact that the first call was billed to the taxpayers of the county. The total cost of that first call was $1.25. The facts are stated in the commercial. However, when we hear the whole story, we realize probably a misdial, an honest mistake that people would make that only costs the taxpayers $1.25. That doesn't seem so bad. But the commercial makes this guy out to be a sleazeball. And that's what's deceptive about these types of commercials. They're very deceiving. They give an appearance that someone is doing something wrong when they may not be. I'm going to skip a couple of these other examples. Okay? Just plain folk commercials are another type of commercials that candidates use. And just plain folk commercials try to make the person seem just like regular old people. I'm just like you. And it may be in the statements they use. I grew up in a small town. I grew up on a farm. I played high school athletics. Or it might be on their dress, rather than dress in a suit and tie, maybe dressed in blue jeans. It might be the appearance in the commercial. Maybe they're walking through a cornfield hunting pheasants, just like you would do. They're dressed similar to you. They look similar to you. They're doing things that are similar to you. Basically, I guess they're saying is, hey, I'm just like you. You should vote for me because I'm pretty much like you. Okay? And these are not harmful commercials, but they also don't really give us any true information. Okay, let's look at this one for John Thune. This is a pretty good example of a Just Plain Folk ad. Notice how he's dressed here, and I know it's a little hard to see on there, but just wearing a regular old shirt, not a suit. Shaking hands with farmers. He looks like he fits in there. I mean, those are Just Plain Folk images. Walking through a cornfield. Apparently in South Dakota, to make a Just Plain Folk act, you better walk through a soybean field or a cornfield or a wheat field or stand beside a bale of hay or a tractor, because apparently that's what farmers do. You're also seeing, here's another example of Just Plain Folk standing on the sidewalk. He's dressed like everybody else. We're also seeing these glittering generalities flashing across the screen at the same time. Farmer standing by a tractor. Okay, just like he looks just like one of these farmers. He's just a regular old guy. Now that's a good example of a Just Plain Folk commercial. It doesn't harm anybody. It's not a harmful commercial, but it also is not giving us any information. Looking at that ad, we may be impressed by John Thune. We may say that he seems like a regular guy. I could vote for him. But it doesn't give us any information on how he feels about the national debt or what he would do with the war in Afghanistan or what his thoughts are on taxes. It gives us almost no information, but it gives across an image. And that's what candidates are trying to get across. They really don't give us a lot of information in their commercials, and the information that often is given may be inaccurate, like in the card stacking commercials. Or it may be just glittering generalities. We're not gaining much from these commercials, and some commercials are very deceitful. Another type of commercial is transfer. And all a transfer commercial is putting some kind of well-respected symbol or person in an ad. And the best example is the American flag. But you can also see it with, maybe the Statue of Liberty, Mount Rushmore. You put a very American symbol in there. Oftentimes these commercials have a combination of things. So if we look at a commercial, or let's go back and look at a commercial that we looked at previously. Remember this commercial, the Mitt Romney commercial. Okay, this is an example of transfer. American symbols.
The right course.
Another very American
for America.
Symbol.
In a world.
Another a very American symbol. The American flag is a great way to show transfer. I guess if you have a flag in your commercial or patriotic things, that makes you patriotic.
Where evil still exists.
So we see lots of flags.
Is not acquiescence and weakness. It's assertive.
Things like this. So you're seeing very American symbols in it. Lots of flags. Again, having a flag or Mount Rushmore or the Statue of Liberty in your commercial doesn't really tell us anything about you. It doesn't give us any real information. But it is appealing. Okay, so transfer is another example. Again, lots of times we see combinations of these things. Negative ads are basically scaring you out of voting for a candidate. Don't vote for this candidate, because if you do, bad things will happen. You can't afford to vote for them. The Daisy Girl ad is probably the most famous one, and you can watch that. It's linked on my PowerPoint. But it's, if you vote for this candidate, we may all die in a nuclear war. Here's a good one. Let me show you this particular ad here. There's a pretty good example of a negative ad.
In his 12 years as governor, Bill Clinton has doubled his state's debt, doubled government spending, and signed the largest tax increase in the state's history. Yet his state remains the 45th worst in which to work, the 45th worst for children. It has the worst environmental policy, and the FBI says Arkansas had America's biggest increase in rate of serious harm. And now Bill Clinton wants to do for America what he's done for Arkansas. America can't take that risk.
That's a good example. And there's lots of examples of negative ads. Card stacking are also negative ads too. But it's basically, if you vote for this person, bad things are going to happen. Lots of ads, like the Just Plain Folk ad, are saying, hey, vote for me because I'm just like you. But when you start to see negative ads, or sometimes they're referred to as name calling, they're saying, don't vote for this person. Don't vote for my opponent. Or if you do, it's going to be bad for America. And you see that in the imagery of that ad. Bandwagon ads, we don't see as much anymore, but it's basically, hey, everyone else is voting for this candidate, so should you. Sometimes we'll see the type of ad where someone will talk and say, I'm voting for Barack Obama for a second term, or I'm voting for this candidate. And maybe we get the idea that everyone else is voting for a candidate. Maybe I should too. We're going to jump on that bandwagon kind of thing. Now, all of these are types of commercials that candidates use to try to influence our votes. But if we look at these commercials, if we look at bandwagoning, who cares who everybody else is voting on? We want to make our decision based on, what do we believe? Does this person have plans that are going to help our country? Negative ads are not giving us any information. They're just trying to scare us. Transfer. So what if somebody has an American flag in their commercial? Does that make them a better candidate? Just because they love our country or they put American symbols in there doesn't give us any real information. Just Plain Folk doesn't tell us how they stand on the issues. I think the worst type of commercials are the card stacking ones because they give very deceitful information. And then glittering generalities give us no real information that we need. They're just stuff that everyone agrees with. These are all types of commercials that candidates use to try to get us to vote for them or not to vote for their opponent. And I contend that they're garbage when it comes to being an informed voter. They don't give us accurate information. We cannot trust them. Too many of them are false or not giving us any information. And if 80 or 90% of them are false, we can't assume we can figure out which ones are true. So a lot of the ads, I think, we need to ignore. If you want to be an informed voter, you're best off ignoring the campaign ads and focusing on other places to get your information. But obviously campaign advertisements work because we see how much is spent. And remember this, we see that in the last election, how much the candidate spent, but we also see that most of it's on negative advertising. 91% for Romney, 85% for Obama. Those ads seem to be the most effective, and they're probably the least accurate. So I guess I'm saying as voters, beware of campaign advertisements. Your best off just ignore it.